Hello everyone, I'm Alexandra August, and welcome to the DiscoTrek. Tonight I am joined by guest host Damien Shaw.
Hello.
Sorry, I told him I would introduce him and then I kind of didn't. Johnny Kulzinski, my illustrious co-host, is not feeling well this week, so Damien is going to pinch hit for him, but Johnny has lots of opinions, so we will find a way to get his thoughts on this episode sooner rather than later. A little bit of housekeeping. If you would like to find this podcast on social media, we are located at the DiscoTrek on Twitter. I am located at ALXAugust on Twitter. Johnny is at Cycloptico, CYCLOPTKIO. That's Cycloptico. You look it up. I'm horrible at spelling it. He's going to laugh when he listens to this. Damien, where can we find you?
I'm also on Twitter. You can find me at Not At All Shaw. That's NOTATALLSHAW. Not At All Shaw.
Damien is a good friend of mine. We actually met at San Diego Comic-Con at a really nerdy A Song of Ice and Fire panel.
Yes.
That all three of us went and got drinks afterwards and have been friends ever since. So he fits right in.
Drinks always help with loud, nerdy opinions.
Yes, they do. If you are new to the DiscoTrek, thank you so much for joining. We are a Star Trek Discovery weekly recap podcast. We come at you every Friday with hot takes and reactions from the previous night's episode. Damien and I have just watched episode 10 of season 2, The Red Angel. We will be spoiling all of that episode plus the rest of the season. So if somehow you stumble upon this particular episode of the DiscoTrek, I would turn back now if you have not seen 210. And with that, I think the only bit of Star Trek news we had this week is pretty minor, which is that Anson Mount and Rebecca Romijn are confirmed not to be returning after season 2. This is pretty unsurprising considering Discovery... Their presence is only ever supposed to have been temporary, both on the show. Presumably Pike is going to go back to the Enterprise once the Enterprise is fixed and once the mission surrounding the Red Angel and the Seven Signals is completed. And since we know both Pike and Number One live, or at least Pike lives to show up on the original series Enterprise in the Menagerie, we know he's going to return to the Enterprise and at some point get burned by radiation and get sent back to Talos 4. Spoilers for the original series. I don't know if you were aware of that, Damien, but Pike has not a great future in front of him. It's really sad.
I have actually watched every episode of Star Trek at least once. So,
cool.
Including the Menagerie and then the original pilot, unaired pilot as well.
Oh yeah, the Cage, yeah, or the Menagerie clip show.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's. Anyway, so that was our big sort of news for the week. But like we said, those two were generally, when they were announced to join the cast for Discovery, it was always presumed they would only be around for the one season. What that begs the question of is if they're going to find something else to do with Anson Mount, considering how much people adore Christopher Pike, and whether or not Discovery is finally going to get a permanent captain and who that might be.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because he has this sort of like natural charisma to being a Star Trek captain.
Mm-hmm.
And in the same way, I personally felt Georgiou did in the first couple of episodes of the first series of Discovery as well.
I agree with you. I was really, they both have that really natural, organic purity of values and ethics that I think we come to associate with Star Trek captains. And I think pretty much every Star Trek captain, what defines them as such is that they are these paragons of these idealistic, high-minded Federation values.
Yeah. So it sort of makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable with Discovery by the way they keep taking away these great role model captains from us. And replacing them with something evil. But I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
Now you just made me really want to see Mirror Pike. I am so excited to see Pike, like Mirror Pike, roll up, I don't know, in some like assless chaps.
Yeah, I really hope he has a gun.
Just like cleaning a gun or something. But anyway, yeah, I guess it also kind of makes me wonder, a lot of people have theorized that the captain of Discovery is going to be kind of like a Defense Against the Dark Arts position where it's just going to change season to season, which I'm not super into. But the problem with having a Star Trek show based on a starship is that typically the captain is the lead of that show. That's kind of traditional. And I feel like if you have a stationary captain, it's going to steal focus from Burnham.
Yes.
So I feel like they may have written themselves into a bit of a corner. But I don't know. Discovery's been pretty good at getting itself out of situations that I didn't think they could get themselves out of. So I look forward to seeing what they come up with. I'm not super in love with the idea of Saru as captain. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. Isn't he supposed to be the captain right now?
He was acting captain. And they were on their way, Discovery was on their way to pick up their new captain when Pike intercepted the ship and commandeered it at the end of season 1. So we don't know who that new captain was supposed to be, but Saru was not supposed to be permanent.
I get that. But in the first couple of episodes, they sort of have this like co-captain thing going on, and that sort of disappeared.
I don't know that that's even a thing.
And Pike just became like the actual captain. I don't know if they explained that or not. I wasn't paying enough attention to answer that question.
Well, that'll remain to be seen. I am really curious to see how Discovery manages to solve its captain problem without making Burnham the captain while still keeping the focus, keeping that sort of lower decks vibe that they wanted, and making her the principal character of the show still. Because I like the structure of the show. I like that Burnham, all of this kind of whirls around her. But it's Star Trek Discovery, so I don't know how you take the show off the ship and focus it on her, and I don't know how she stays on the ship with a rotating cadre of captains. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how they solve that problem.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think that's, like I said, that was the only real news we had. So why don't we jump into discussing this week's episode? The Red Angel is episode 10 of season 2, and it was directed by Hanelle Culpepper, who was just announced to be the director of she's going to direct the pilot of the new as yet unnamed Picard series. And it was written by Chris Silvestri and Anthony Marinville. What are your hot takes on this one, Damien? Overall, how did this episode leave you feeling?
Yes, good question. I would guess this episode didn't leave me feeling that excited.
Okay.
The first 30 minutes or so of the episode was mostly just characters talking to each other before they decided what the actual action point was going to be. Which, eventually led into a twist in sort of a fairly formulaic way. I don't want to criticize it too much because I did really enjoy some of the dialogue. But as an episode, it did feel like it fell a little flat.
Yeah, I feel a similar way. I don't know if I've just been. I think this episode soured for me immediately when they said not it soured for me immediately the second I turned it on. I'm always very excited for Star Trek, and like you, there were lots of things that I enjoyed about this episode, but I've been dreading the reveal of who the Red Angel is, just because at this point I know that like this show does not operate within a terrifically large universe, and I knew there was no chance we were going to get a reveal that it was just this completely otherworldly alien, and it was this explanation that was very, very sci-fi. It definitely was sort of grounded in a very small mystery of like, okay, it's a cast of characters, it's somebody we've probably met before. And I wasn't looking forward to that reveal because I knew it was going to be a letdown. And then in the first moment of the episode, they tell you it's Burnham. They say beyond a shadow of a doubt that it's her biosignature. There's a lot of technobabble, and all of a sudden Burnham's the Red Angel. Oh my goodness! And they realize that they can kill her. They can use their Michael Burnham to attract the Red Angel there, and they work out this very big complicated plan. And I think I was just kind of seething and annoyed that I was like, I don't want to see future Burnham. This is annoying. This destroys the mystery. And then when they hit so hard on Burnham's parents, kind of clicked for me that maybe it wasn't going to be Burnham. But then when it was her mom, that in and of itself felt a little predictable. Even though I wouldn't have guessed it, but the only reason we didn't guess it was because we didn't have any of the information, and because the show flat out told us beyond a shadow of a doubt from a doctor that the biosignature could not belong to anyone else but Burnham. So it was just this really lame, I felt, lame sleight of hand, almost. It was sort of this, what is the term in sleight of hand when, not distraction. When you draw someone's attention away from what it is you're doing.
Sure. I think sleight of hand is exactly the right term for it.
I know there's a word for it. But yeah, it felt really. It just felt, yeah, I don't know. It felt like, I felt like a baby. And it was like somebody was waving something really shiny in front of me just so they could like take away this ball that I was playing with so I wouldn't cry anymore. I don't know. It just felt very lamely handled. And I think it just ultimately the whole episode was reflective of Discovery's penchant for trying to get so much done and trying to communicate these really complex ideas very quickly. So the only thing left to do with them is to tell you about them and to say, okay, here's what's happening. She's the Red Angel. Here's where we find her. Blah, blah, blah. This is how we do it. And like we said before, it was a lot of telling and not showing.
Yeah. I think this episode really exposed a lot of that weakness of storytelling in Discovery, which, I don't know, it's a little sad because I think they do some really good storytelling from episode to episode.
Yeah, I mean, I had some issues with Culber and Stamets this week, but I mean that remains one of my favorite relationships. I don't know. It just seems like they were approaching playing a really beautiful PTSD storyline, and now we're back to it just being about them getting their relationship back.
Yeah, I mean, I guess from the couple of episodes ago, I was so impressed with that particular storyline in a way of telling that particular kind of hurt, that this episode hadn't really caught up with me with their relationship and how they were trying to play that yet, because I was still they'd already had this like quite strong emotional exploration of this. So I guess from my point of view, this episode didn't turn that for me. Like if they were trying to change that relationship to being more normalized, I guess it hadn't quite clicked for me by the end of the episode, but I'll probably rewatch the episode to see if it does. With regards to that particular therapy session, I thought the introduction dialogue for that was really weird. It went something along the lines of, Admiral, you used to be a therapist. And she replies, I'm aware of that. I was like, okay, so right. This is now a therapy session? Or like, I don't know. Anyway, it was an odd scene.
Yeah, there was a lot that just. I'm gonna have to watch this one again too, because like I said, I don't know. No, it wasn't that I was just in a bad mood. There was just a lot of annoying crap in this episode. I think Georgiou's character continues to be really confusing, and like one episode she's really dastardly and devoid of any moral value. In this episode, she's practically back to the Philippa that we met in the pilot, and has very strong feelings for Burnham. When I guess that was kind of written into her character in the Mirror Universe because she cares about her Michael, but none of that has really been grounded very well. Like, we didn't meet the Mirror Michael, so when Georgiou is like, oh, Michael Burnham in either universe willing to put yourself before the lives of others. Like, was she? Because the Mirror of Burnham seemed just as hate-worthy as any other mirror universe citizen. Like, she seemed to have made just as many enemies on her crew, and the point of the mirror universe is that you can't survive unless you're a piece of shit. Like, that's just how it works.
Right. And this was something I was thinking a little bit about in this episode. In the mirror universe, people are, like, evil. You know, in a way that isn't usually covered in Star Trek. You know, in Star Trek there's a lot of greys, but sort of by writing a mirror universe, they're sort of able to get away with having, like, dastardly villains with, you know, twirly mustaches.
Yeah.
And our Jojo character at the moment is from this universe. So it just seems a little bit confusing at the moment, trying to understand what her perspective and motivation was in this episode.
Yeah, like, it's sort of... I guess it just remains really problematic for me that they would take an emperor of basically a galaxy. And this is a woman who is presumably, like, it's not hereditary that she gets this position. She presumably took it, which is, if you've read or seen anything else about the Mirror Universe, like, typically that's how the Terran Empire worked. Like, you seize power, you don't get it handed to you, which is why it's such a shitty place. And none of us would ever want to live there. But just to have a woman who was an emperor, who was in control of this galaxy and maintained control for a long time, or in control of that universe and maintained control of it for a long time, get bounced over to the Prime universe and then get put in a position of fairly significant power with Section 31, and we see her kind of trying to unseat Leland, and that kind of seems to be her motivation. But now then she also seems to be murkily kind of obsessed with Michael, and I just don't, like, I don't know if is she as self-serving as she should be to have been an emperor in the Mirror Universe, or is she soft-hearted? Because I don't know, she just her characterization, I feel like, is very contradictory most days.
Yeah, and I think they could explain this if they had an episode that, like, actually was from her perspective. You know, they could play on the fact that she's no longer in a cutthroat universe, and so she's sort of her character's changing.
She's allowed to feel these things. She's allowed to indulge in emotions that she wasn't allowed to before. Like, she can care about Michael without the danger, without presuming that Michael's eventually going to use that tenderness against her. Where you get the sense in the Mirror Universe that if you have strong feelings for anyone, it's a weakness, it's a vulnerability.
Yeah, but they're not. You know, they just don't have time to explore that kind of characterization of you know, non-major characters.
But, and you know what frustrates me about that is that we still get, and it's not that I don't enjoy Tilly, and it's not that I don't enjoy the level of humor or comedy in Discovery, because I like it that people take themselves a little bit less seriously on this show and it's more naturalistic. But instead of spending time getting something from someone else's point of view, we have Tilly, like, running into a conference room. Oh, it wasn't locked. Sorry, it wasn't locked. Sometimes these doors just open and blah, blah. It's just, Tilly is now a shtick when she used to be a really fun, kind of unique character in Star Trek. Now she's literally comic relief, or at least she has been for the last couple of episodes. And then we got what was a comedic scene that did not land for me in engineering, when Georgiou sidles up to Stamets and sexually harasses him blatantly, which was very in character. I did not mind that. But then all of a sudden, Culber's character is, like, low-key jealous, apparently, and it's like, you know he's gay, right? And I don't know, just whatever happened after that, I was not here for. And I was really not here for her, like, sidling up to Culber and calling him Poppy. It just made, like, I don't know. It felt like really lowbrow, unintelligent humor, and I just wasn't into it.
Yeah, I mean, I was also enjoying the scene when it was just the sexual harassment, but I was just, I guess, a bit confused what they tried to do with the scene after that.
Yeah, it felt like, I don't know, it felt like somebody really wanted that joke in there, and it just it felt like a rock thrown into colloquial Star Trek. It's just not I don't know.
Yeah.
Really, I liked it. I liked that she was. I did like her saying, like, "Wow, like she's like, you've got a lot of pent up energy, but I think you're smarter than your counterpart." Because I like it when Georgiou gets to interact with people she hasn't really interacted with before, and she gets to talk about her universe just because she's really fun when she does that. But I kind of want her to either be in control or be in the brig. It's one or the other. I don't like seeing her play this middle management role where she's kind of biding her time, working underneath Leland, and like I feel like Emperor Georgiou would have been like, Burnham's dead, or Burnham needs to come back, and would have fought tooth and nail against Spock to get Burnham to turn on life support again once we're down on Esau 4, I believe is the planet.
Yeah, and as well as just being in the brig and being Emperor, I really enjoy the scenes where she's manipulating people who think they have leverage over her, but she's sort of turned it around on them.
Yeah.
I find those scenes a lot of fun. But yeah, the sort of the more day-to-day boring, or I'm actually just being a Section 31 officer, is not... doesn't seem to fit her character very well.
Yeah. I did... That's the thing, though. It's like I didn't necessarily mind the emotional levels. I guess, well, let's move into Burnham kind of becoming the bait for this Red Angel, which seems questionable, but I don't know. It's not like we haven't seen stuff like this on Star Trek before, where someone puts themselves at risk for the good of the ship or the mission. It's just usually there's a lot more foreshadowing, and it's not arrived at quite as easily, and it's really chewed on for a lot more time.
Yeah, but it was going back to what you said earlier, is they've got so much that they're trying to get through that they just sort of explain it at you. You know, the explanation that Burnham needs to be the bait, because Burnham is the one in the Red Angel suit, and therefore it's like a grandfather paradox, was just sort of like quickly explained at you, and then they were like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, and also the whole like temporal arms race with the Klingons. Hi. All right. And that really came out of nowhere. I would not have expected... I mean, I don't know. The Klingons aren't really known for their scientific achievements. Not to say they haven't made any, but the temporal arms race felt also kind of like it was lifted from Enterprise in the temporal Cold War, and I think that they're just... I want Star Trek to leave the time travel alone for a while, because it feels like there's way too many ways to go back in time right now.
Yeah, I mean, anymore. I'm I have the opposite opinion. I'm like, I love time travel stories. The more complicated, the better, please. But I totally appreciate that that's my particular niche of enjoyment, along with Star Trek Enterprise.
I don't mind it. Like, I don't mind time travel in and of itself, but I kind of prefer it's like, okay, I prefer it to be in a movie or in a show like Doctor Who, where if you're gonna mess with time travel all of the time, and
right,
or don't, and make it really special, because Star Trek isn't. We're kind of meant to believe that Star Trek is to a degree possible, and what's fun about that is we've seen a lot of Star Trek technology kind of show up in or at least the design of it show up in present day, and I feel like the more you interject stuff like time travel and then explain it literally with the term time crystal, it's silly. And yeah, so
yeah, I mean, I feel
not
like
that the Kirk jerk was much better, but go on, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I feel if you're going to do time travel to a certain extent, you have to like not explain it. You have to just be like, oh, it's future alien technology, which actually, if you look at a lot of the way time travel works in most Star Trek episodes, that sort of ends up being what it is. It's like, oh, we were accidentally caught in a time portal. Or...
literally an orb of time.
Yeah.
on Deep Space Nine. Also, like, the Guardian of Forever is like the Iconian Gates. Like, there's I'm not trying to shit on Discovery and say that Discovery is unique in its ability to sort of dilute time travel. I'm just kind of annoyed that we're getting it's a theme throughout the entire season as opposed to a single episode.
Yes, and not in a way that they're like trying to sort of explore that, just in a way that they're using it as a plot device.
Yeah, that's the thing. It just seemed like, okay, we got this time crystal, and here she is, and we've cut off her wormholes, and it's Burnham's mom. It's just, it's just a lot in a single episode, and so everything feels a little bit underserved. Even Ariam's funeral at the beginning, we didn't like somebody. Sorry, I'm half reading the Vulture recap because it's making me laugh so hard. Devin Maloney of Vulture folks liked this episode about as much as I did. And, I'm so sorry if you're listening to this and you did like it and I'm upsetting you. I don't mean to. It just rubbed me the wrong way, but I hope you enjoyed it. But he pointed out, very rightfully so, that, you know, and Star Trek has a habit of this where, and I think it's just because it's a TV show, where certain members of the crew are more valuable in terms of attention than others. So Pike loses a well-known member of his crew in the first episode of this season, and it's a big deal. Ariam, granted, has been around, but just got a personality and really filled out last week. Gets a funeral that was longer than Spock's, and had a lot of the same elements.
Yeah.
And when I say Spock's, I mean Wrath of Khan Spock's, like the big Spock death. I guess the only, yeah. So it just, yeah, this episode frustrated me because I feel like we're in the home stretch and like I feel like they are scrambling to get everything done and to just pack so much in. And yet it still feels, and still the story that we're getting, I don't know why the Burnham's mom thing even rubbed me the wrong way, and I feel like maybe it's just because I saw Aquaman this year, and oops, Nicole Kidman's a secret mom, and then Ant-Man and the Wasp, and like, oops, Michelle Pfeiffer's still alive, and she's a mom who's still alive, and even Alias, Sydney Bristow's mom, coming back. I don't know if it was just... I think maybe it's just the fact that, like, I feel like they're playing in a really small universe right now. And Star Trek's usually a really big universe. But even the time crystal, Leland found one on the Orion black market. Like, is there not another alien race you could have referenced? Could this not have been anybody but Burnham's mother? And that would have been as interesting. Like, it would have been interesting if it was a Klingon or a Cardassian or, like, an alien species we haven't seen. But they're just kind of playing in this very small pool. And it's making the seasons that are built around these kinds of mysteries, like Ash Tyler and Vogue last season and the Red Angel and the Probe this season, it makes these mysteries easy to spot from far out, even though I will say, like, did not predict it on Burnham's mother, but I could not possibly have been allowed to. Like, literally not even in this episode, nobody could have figured that out.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly does feel like every mystery at the moment will be answered with one of Burnham's relatives. That's
a very good point.
Like, oh, it's your adopted brother, or it's your uncle, or it's your son from the future.
I mean, the son from the future, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
I'm into that.
I mean, at least there would be a point to the time travel then, I guess. Like, I think one of
oh yeah, go on.
One of the sad parts, like, if it had been Burnham from the future, then again there would have been a point to the time travel. Like, the current Burnham is in some state, and the future Burnham is in some other state, and there's like some actual hard sci-fi going on. But because it's her mother, like, it doesn't even have to be time travel to explain any of this. It can just be some suit that can travel around at, like, transwarp speeds.
Well,
it's not.
Oh yeah.
Like, it. Why does this even have to be from the future? Like, it's just so I don't know. It's just used as like this plot device, but not explored at all, which I already said. But
well, and I
I'm
think
still thinking on it.
ultimately the frustrating thing when we're talking about small universes, and I think this is just kind of the function that instead of having an episodic show, this is a serialized show, so there isn't the time to bounce around and meet all the different like aliens and species and go on all these different missions that, you know, the people in TNG did, or that DS9 was kind of a hub for, or that, you know, Voyager was constantly encountering because it was constantly on the move through the Delta Quadrant. Discovery doesn't really have that capability because they're narrowly focused, which is fine. But it's also frustrating that, like, we have time travel and the time traveler's coming to us. We're not going anywhere. We're not traveling to the future. The show isn't using time travel to show the audience, like, where it is to go, or like cool places to go, or like what could possibly happen. It's using time travel in kind of a really almost boring way. And like you said, like, it's so it doesn't even need to be time travel. Like, it kind of looks like her mom has aged to the point where she is just the right. I mean, she's Sonia Sohn is the actress playing Burnham's mother. She was on The Wire. She's amazing. I was very happy to see her show up. And it looks like she's all bitter and ragey next week. She's like, time is savage. But yeah, I'm struggling because I feel like this is a weak story with a lot of bells and whistles, really, really, really well told by the actors who are working on it, and there's a lot of good dialogue to be had, but I feel like a lot of it's very contrived.
Yeah, and I would say a serialized show doesn't have to feel like it's a small universe. I mean, if we look at like the first couple of seasons of Game of Thrones, it doesn't feel like it's in a small universe. It feels like it's in this huge epic universe.
Yeah, to the point like that's given
a few stories are being told in.
Actually a turnoff to a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not necessarily saying that you have to be quite so big, but there's definitely a way to write it to make it feel like it's a bigger universe than just everybody's relative is what the problem is.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I guess I kind of always hunker back to Encounter at Farpoint whenever I think of the idea that, like, I want the mystery to be itself a mystery. I want the solution to the mystery to be something to explore, because that was kind of the magic of that episode, was that they finally figure out who and what these aliens are, and they're like, oh, they just want to chill out and go home or whatever. There's no human relevance hiding behind it. There's no Enterprise. There's no original Enterprise or Spock hiding behind the cause of these things. There's no fan service here. It's not self-referential. It's something totally new. And that's what Star Trek is. I don't know. It just felt like... And I just kind of feel like I don't know. I feel like the explanations for things and the way the story is going, it's not spectacularly innovative. It's too familiar. It's too... Yeah. Sorry, I'm not being super articulate, but you get the picture.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm gonna say, I don't know that I did really enjoy parts of this episode. I really liked Dr. Culber's suit quite a bit.
Oh, that was a great suit. I wish more Star Trek characters would walk around in suits that are that sharp.
I wish that too. I don't think there has been a sharper looking Star Trek character.
Yeah, it really created a great visual language for how they were trying to say he wasn't part of the crew at the moment without having to like just constantly explain that.
Yeah, and also too, I think it was sort of a good visual reference for the fact that, you know, this is not a gentle Hugh Culber anymore. This guy's got some hard edges, wearing a black suit, it's open to his chest. He was almost aggressively dressed. Yeah. Which was kind of cool. And if you think about that, like, and then think about what they dressed Deanna Troi in for 6 seasons, and how she was a member of the crew, but, you know, slightly, like, was supposed to be slightly more approachable. Really just and she used her cleavage for that. It's I don't know, kind of an interesting comparison, and like kind of a better manifestation of that in Culber.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of clothes, I swear Jojo had a more pronounced BDSM outfit this episode.
Certainly apropos, considering what she got up to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did look a little bit more embellished, and her hair looked a little bit more fanciful.
Even Captain Leland, I thought his suit has sort of moved away from that more fabricy looking Star Trek outfit to an actual more like leather top. But I could just be imagining it. It felt like it transitioned a little bit this episode, like they were trying to sort of push that Section 31 is transforming. But maybe it was just because I was paying more attention to the outfits this episode.
I can't speak to Leland, but speaking of Section 31 transforming, I think we should probably mention that one thing again that was just a little bit underserved this week was that apparently at the end of the very end of the episode, when Leland rushes to help Tyler, or, do Section 31's half of cutting off that wormhole so they can trap the Red Angel there, Leland basically looks into what looks like a scope, like a submarine scope, and then the control, or whatever, the malevolent AI is that's been, corrupted Arium and tried to get control to be sentient, zaps him in the eye and then mimics his voice and tells Tyler, and starts communicating with Tyler, and then like completes the mission. So now we're led to believe that Leland is disabled on his own ship, because Georgia's on the planet, Tyler's on Discovery, and Leland was in control of the Section 31 ship. But now Control is in control of the Section 31 ship and can mimic Leland's voice. So we don't know if Leland is incapacitated or if he's dead, but he's not in control of the Section 31 ship anymore, which they need to give a goddamn name already, because it's annoying to call it the Section 31 ship.
Yeah. Assuming Section 31 ships get names.
They may not. Section 31 does not seem like they have romantic sensibilities like that. They are not breaking bottles of champagne over the bows of the ships before they go out.
Yeah, definitely not.
So that was kind of an important thing to note. I'm curious to see. I think you and I talked about too, just how kind of confusing what exactly is happening with the Red Angel and the probe aliens / Control. And I think my best explanation of it is that Arium with Tilly investigated the Great Sphere, so had access to and understanding of a ton of that data. When the Red Angel came into, well, not the Red Angel, when the probe from the future infects the shuttle that Pike and Tyler are on in Light and Shadow, and then comes aboard and infects Arium, it presumably is doing that, I think, to chase the Red Angel, and then winds up on Discovery and realizes they have access to this data, and that it can get to Section 31's Control, and by uploading that data to Control can make Control sentient, which would enable it to be able to fight the Red Angel when the Red Angel keeps coming back to this time, and to have an agent in the past when presumably the Red Angel is being one step ahead of these probe aliens by popping back to the past and trying to lead Discovery to this conclusion.
Yeah, I mean, the only loose end to that is before this happened, Control had killed the crew of the Section 31 headquarters. And I haven't yet tied that into how this works with the plot that they've explained.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm stuck there too. And I would be like, okay, maybe it's a time travel thing, but nobody is questioning that, and I don't see how it could be a time travel thing at this point. I don't know. It's confusing. And again, I think this goes back to lots of stuff being chatted about, and lots of plot development happening. That's kind of... Sorry, go on.
Yeah, so when Burnham at the beginning of the episode was talking to Leland in the elevator. She said that the AI that had come back from the future, the AI was a future version of Control. So the idea that I had in my head is that Control had already sort of decided that humans were the problem and had started to kill them. And then when the Red Angels started messing about with time, or Control's a future version of Control started messing about with time, and the Red Angel tried to stop that, is that Control is trying to make the past version of itself sort of more formidable,
right,
to try and affect the present.
Yeah.
Which is sort of not outside the bounds of a regular Star Trek time travel plot.
Right. I just feel like it's very like this. I mean, it's kind of the plot of First Contact, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
And I'm not mad about that, but again, First Contact was way less convoluted.
Right. So, but that was it. In First Contact, they explained it in that 2-hour and however many minute window with a fairly like simple storyline. With this, they're not actually explaining they're not showing what's going on, and they're sort of trying to explain things through
misdirection.
Dialogue.
Yeah, it's a little misdirection.
Yeah, and there's a lot of misdirection.
That is, and I think that's my frustration here, is that in lieu of actually creating a really compelling mystery and something that's, very complex, it's just a lot of misdirection. It's look over here, maybe it's this, oop, nope, it's not this, that, oh wait, Spock's a murderer, yeah, we have the videotape to prove it, it can't be faked. 20 minutes later, it's fake. Burnham is the Red Angel. It can't, there's absolutely there's no way her bioneural signature could be anything other than that. There's no way the Red Angel could be anything but Burnham. 20 minutes later, it's not Burnham. I mean, it's just at this point, I feel really manipulated, and that is not, and if these seasons are going to be based on a mystery, if your series is going to hinge on the identity of who this creature is or what the creature is that's trying to come back and thwart us, those have to be really good mysteries. They have to be really complex. They have to be something like Littlefinger telling Lysa to kill John Aaron. They have to be really rooted, and I just feel like this episode was indicative of how much it hasn't been this season. Despite the season having such amazing elements and having so much, there's been so much to love about this season, but this is just a big thing to go wrong that is very disappointing.
Yeah. I keep wanting to use Star Trek Enterprise as a good example, but I'm gonna hold off on it too much because
please, I'm curious. You can talk about Star Trek on the Star Trek podcast. That's why we want you.
Yeah, I just feel like sometimes I'm the only fan of Enterprise.
You're not. I like things about Enterprise. I just didn't watch it because it was poor timing for me.
Yeah, I mean, when they were sort of really exploring the temporal Cold War in season 3, the big mystery was who were the sphere builders, and it was just like it was, that was the mystery, and it turned out it was aliens from the future. So spoilers if anybody hasn't watched Star Trek Enterprise but was really dying to watch it. And I think it was a nice simple mystery, and it had a sort of like a sci-fi explanation to it, and I get that this is trying to explore sort of more personal, emotional stories than was in Enterprise, with significantly better actors than were in Enterprise. But I feel like there's still a lot of room to have, nice big grand sci-fi stories with mysteries that we can follow fairly easily.
Yeah. I think that about sums it up. What does give me a lot of hope about this episode is that we have 4 more left. Or 3. 4. 14 episodes total. I just tweeted about how Kima from The Wire is the Red Angel, and I feel like I don't know. Should I delete that tweet? It's 9:22.
Oh, for spoilers.
Yeah, am I an asshole? I feel like
Probably. I don't know. That's on the edge.
all right. Yeah, I'm gonna delete it. Sorry, guys. Nobody. I have no notifications for that, so hopefully very few people saw it. But and nobody listening to if you're listening to this, it's your fault that you were spoiled. I don't know. That's all I can say.
If you got this far into the podcast, you're like, what?
So yeah, I have a lot of hope because I feel like they have a lot of room left to fill. I'm a little bit concerned at what they're going to fill it with at this point. But I feel like, okay, maybe the reason that they just mowed over these revelations as quickly as they did and downloaded all of this information, for lack of a better word, as quickly as they did this week is because there's a lot more action and there's maybe some more revelations to be had.
I mean, I've kind of got a lot of hope now they've got past who the Red Angel is. Like, teasing that out was kind of... I mean, it just was... It was kind of inevitable that it was going to be a little bit disappointing. So now that, we know who the Red Angel is, we can move on and maybe do something interesting with that.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I thought it was a really effective modus operandi to tease Spock for as long as they did, because they made people want it. They made people want him, and I've really enjoyed Spock. I think in part because I was manipulated into kind of hoping for him for a while, and also we got a lot of context about his relationship with Burnham before he and Burnham actually had to activate that relationship, which I think was really smart. Conversely, I think making the Red Angel this huge deal and then waiting this long to reveal her now is just another element that I didn't really need in an overburdened season. I honestly wonder what it would have been like if they had just taken away the Red Angel and had something else kind of signify these, or something else. I don't know how place another element there that wasn't a person. I wonder if this season would have worked that well, or would have been improved. I don't know.
Yeah. So the writer for this episode was the first time writing for Discovery, or has it written previous episodes?
First time writing for Discovery. He's been a writer's assistant.
Okay. I definitely felt like there was a different style. And I was just sort of like looking over the episode titles as well, which I've not spent any time thinking about before this episode. But it was just very interesting that the episode was called The Red Angel, and what we found out in this episode was who the Red Angel was.
Yeah, I know.
Whereas
a little prosaic.
Every other episode title is sort of like not quite as clear, I would say. I mean, the next episode's called Perpetual Infinity.
Yeah, they really leaned into some of the sort of lyricism of titles and the title indulgence this season, which I'm not mad at. I don't mind a good scene chewing Trek title, but I feel like I wish they were a bit more consistent with it. The Red Angel was very direct.
Yep.
I think I kind of want to end this now, just because I hate being negative, and I hate being negative about Star Trek. I just was really frustrated by this one. Despite ultimately also really enjoying, even though I am annoyed that Tilly's comic relief, really enjoying her what happened after Giorgio's weird interaction with Colbert Stamets. That was fun. So we can end on a good solid Tilly note.
Yeah, and I have to say I still really enjoy pretty much all the acting.
Yeah, it's really fucking good.
Jojo played by Michelle Yeoh, right?
Yo, yeah.
Yeah, Yo. I mean, I know she's already an amazing actress, but she just continues to knock it out the park in her facial expressions and scenes she's in and how she interacts with other characters. It's just so fun to see her in an episode along with everybody else.
She's having so much fun with this. It is hilarious. Whenever she's, I think I've mentioned this on the show before, but like when she's in, if she goes to a convention, I've seen her, saw her at New York Comic Con this year at the Star Trek Discovery panel, and she walked out and she fucking loves it. She walks out and immediately grabs the microphone and goes to the edge, went to the edge of the stage and said, "Don't you bow before your emperor?" to Madison Square Garden. And
I was about 6 rows from the front when she was doing that. It was great fun.
Oh yeah. So I love that she's having. That's, I think, one of the saving graces of the show. Not the saving grace. There's a lot to love about the show, but I think one of the best parts of the show is like how much every member of the cast is having such a good time.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Go on.
I would say when I'm not thinking about the story,
basically, yeah.
I just love watching it.
Me too.
It's so visually appealing, and you know, the characters are a lot of fun. So
I kind of wish they would just a little bit move back from loving Star Trek so much and just making good Star Trek. Everything is kind of dialed to an 11, and everyone has like it's all very intense all the time. And Star Trek historically is not been like that. Like, they've taken a break to just kind of indulge in the joy of discovery and science, and which makes it such a nerdy show. And while I like this version of prestige Star Trek that we're getting, and it is so beautiful and I'm enjoying the action nature of it, I'm missing a little bit those quieter moments of just, you know, finding a weird planet and a weird alien and figuring it out.
They need to take a holiday to Risa.
Or, yeah.
And have a scene where the Doctor needs to lecture them on STDs.
Yes, or have like somebody mess with the weather, have the most serious moment being Worf punching a protester in the nose because he messed with the weather on Risa and it's rainy. And oh man, that was a great episode. DS9 folks. Can't remember. Also important to note, Sarah Middich, who played Ariam in the first season, came back to Star Trek, and she is Lieutenant Nelson. So if you notice the blonde who came on the bridge.
Oh, yeah, I had a note about that. That was such a weird scene. What was going on there?
Well, it was because I think that was Ariam's position, that was her replacement, which is interesting because she was the woman who played Ariam in the first season. So the first time they had gone on a mission when Ariam wasn't going to be there, that's when they all turned around and saw Lieutenant Nelson come on. And it was her replacement. And it was like, oh, Ariam's gone. We're moving on with life now. And it was a sad moment. But just kind of fun, kind of interesting that actress was essentially promoted to play a real person.
Oh, interesting.
Not that Ariam wasn't a real person, but
yeah.
Okay, folks. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Damien, for coming on and pinch hitting. I so appreciate it, and I know our listeners do as well.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's always fun just to chat with you for a long time about Star Trek-y nerdiness.
I know, we're both in our elements at the moment. We miss you, Johnny. Get well soon and come back. Johnny Facebooked me and said he actually liked this episode. So when I joked about Johnny getting his opinion out there in some capacity, he was committed to recording a bonus episode in case we disagreed. So you might see that, you might not. I don't have a lot of time coming up because WonderCon is next weekend. But you might find some more content from us fairly soon.
I feel like that would have been a better episode to have somebody strongly disagree with you.
I don't know. I might have gotten a little bit emotional about it because I was very frustrated. But I don't know. It is fun when Johnny and I disagree. Anyway, we will be back next week. I will also be on Chase Masterson's Disco Nights, which there will be a live recording Friday 2:30 if any of you listening are going to WonderCon. But like I said, Johnny and I will be back together next Thursday to record and drop a new episode of the DiscoTrek for you next Friday. And Damien will probably pop up at some point again on either the DiscoTrek or Goth Thrones because he's fun and we like having him around.
Yeah, definitely. And that's my area of special. That's more my area of specialist knowledge is Game of Thrones. So I'm definitely up for that.
In terms of Trek recommendations this week, I would check out the Sphere of Elders arc on the Enterprise, and I'm trying to think. There's a time travel episode from like season 2 of Next Generation, where it's a guy from New Jersey who steals a time ship, and who steals technology and steals technology from someone from like the 27th century and manages to come to the future to enter to the Enterprise D and convince everyone that he's from the future, and then tries to take Data back with him to New Jersey to, I don't know, an example of time travel where the Enterprise D did not time travel, but the time travel was a little bit more interesting than what we've been getting so far.
Yeah, and the mirror episode of that in Voyager where they went back in time and there was a guy trying to steal technology from the future.
Oh yeah, they get Future's End.
Yeah, that's where
Bigley Jr.
the Doctor gets his mobile
emitter, which was
mobile emitter.
I loved that device because it was like, okay, we needed the Doctor to get out of sick bay for some time, but having the limitations of him being in sick bay were such good story elements, and then they got him out of the sick bay with a mobile emitter that was actually pretty hard won, and they backed it up. They're like, okay, yeah, this is 29th century or 27th century whatever technology, and good writing, Star Trek Voyager. Okay, folks, thank you so much. And like we said, we'll be back next Friday. Hope you enjoyed this. Please tell one person about this podcast if you really, really like it. Just telling one person goes a lot longer towards our listenership than a post on Twitter or social media, which we also appreciate. And if you're feeling super generous, if you could write us a review on iTunes or Stitcher or Spotify or wherever else you still find podcasts, we would also appreciate that. Helps with our visibility quite a bit. And yeah, we will see you soon. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.